Welcome into Locked On Knicks. Alex Wolfe and Gavin Schall here, and we are continuing our June mailbag in earnest. And Gavin, we have a bunch of questions today from one of our all-star question askers, Jordan Bubb from Twitter.
Yeah, big shout out to Jordan. We talk about our most overhyped and undervalued prospects, and then we talk about if we would trade the Knicks first round pick for a variety of veterans, and if so, which one would we pick? All that and more right now on Locked On Knicks.
You are Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
All right, welcome in to Locked On Knicks, your daily New York Knicks podcast. We want to thank you guys for making Locked On Knicks your first listen today and every day, whether you're checking us out in your earbuds or if you're checking us out in your earbuds and on your screen, or maybe even on your TV. It's kind of weird. You can watch YouTube on your TV now. Maybe you watch us on TV. That would be kind of cool, like we're on SportsCenter or something. Either way, we appreciate you guys making us a part of your day today and every day, whether it's on your favorite podcast platform or on YouTube. I'm Alex Wolfe. I'm editor-in-chief of Knicks site, The Strickland, which you can find at thestrick.land. He is Gavin Schall, your favorite play-by-play broadcaster's favorite play-by-play broadcaster. Gavin, you still doing lacrosse this week?
Yeah. It's the final rounds. New York State semifinals, New York State championship, and then I'm away from the great sport of lacrosse for 10 months. My heart will break, but you know what? I guess I can just keep talking Knicks.
It's the final countdown. Speaking of final countdown, we're on our initial countdown towards some questions from our buddy Jordan Bubb off of Twitter for our June mailbag, which, by the way, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh crap, there was a mailbag, you can go to our Twitter and ask us questions right in there. Or maybe even if you're on YouTube, I mean, we could scroll the comments. If you have a question, just say, hey, we have a question for you guys, and ask it in the comments, and we'll answer it on a future show this month, because we're going to keep answering these questions as long as we get them, because we love getting questions from you guys. But our first question from our buddy Jordan today: who is the most overhyped and undervalued prospects in this NBA draft? So, Gavin, I guess first, let's start negative, I guess. Who do you think is being overhyped right now in the NBA draft?
That's a good question. This feels weird to say because he's a Knicks fan favorite, but I don't know if I'm all in on Benedict Mathurin quite yet. I think he's going to be a really good player. I don't know if what makes him a star in college necessarily translates to the NBA. I see a good role player there, but I think there are people who watch some of his bigger performances at Arizona, particularly that game against TCU, and see a star. I don't know if I go quite that far. I think he's an interesting role player with maybe the upside for a little bit more. But Alex, I'm gonna have to think on that a little bit more. Did anyone jump to the front of your mind?
I've got two that might be a little surprising to people listening when I say these two names, but one is Shaedon Sharpe. I think based off some recent conversations that we had with PD Webb, and then that you had with Jake Rosen. I think people in the know that really have paid more attention to Sharpe's game seem to kind of see behind the veil of the number one high school prospect thing, considering how quickly he made that rise and how it was basically just based off a 15 game EYBL sample, which is, its own thing as far as how much do we value, that versus college play versus just high level high school play, when they're playing at these big, prep schools and whatever. So initially, I know that you and I were we've watched a few videos of him and we were like, oh my God, sell the house to go get Shaedon Sharpe. He's going to be a star, not necessarily sell the house, but, be aggressive, try to get him. Now I'm kind of I don't know. I have some question marks with I still see him showing up in top fives of these mocks. And I'm I don't know. I have some questions based off how he handled the pre-draft process so far. The fact that, if I would have seen him, after not being in high school for, he hadn't played basketball in so long, any organized ball, thanks to, his high school season being interrupted by COVID and stuff. And then, the eligibility stuff at Kentucky. And then he maybe could have played the second half of Kentucky, but I didn't fault him for not doing it, because if you're coming in, you weren't there for training camp and everything. It's a little hard to come in and make yourself look good that way. But then like this guy's supposed to be a mega athlete. He's supposed to be a great like isolation scorer and all this other stuff that's like perfect to go into the combine and just wreck everybody. And he doesn't even do that. I'm like, I'm starting to have a little bit of reservations about him, and I wonder, I don't know what it is that's that caused him to have those decisions. I guess we'll hear what starts coming out once we start hearing about like his workouts with teams, but he worries me a little bit. And then also another guy, I mean, I love him, but I also think that his limitations are being.
Can I guess who you're gonna say?
Yeah.
I'm betting on Jabari Smith.
No, I was actually going to say
Oh.
Dyson Daniels,
Oh,
surprisingly.
interesting.
I think
Wow.
I think he's maybe getting a little bit overvalued. Or maybe I'm just trying to will him to the Knicks at 11, but I think there's some concerns with him. Like I know that his player type is very in vogue right now, but like he's not quite the passer that like a Josh Giddey or a LaMelo is. He's got some of the same shooting question marks that they do. Yes, he plays the amazing defense, but like I think that there's a lot of guys in this draft that could potentially end up more well-rounded offensive players with an easier path to get there than him. And that's sort of what worries me a little bit. And if you want him to be a point guard in the NBA, like that, especially, I think might take like at least a year or two. Like I think you're going to have to commit to, sort of having him play off ball and sort of be a connector for a little bit. But if he's going to do that, the 3-point shot has to come around sooner than later. So like that's another thing. I just feel like, I really like his game. Obviously, I've been advocating for the Knicks to take him. I would even say like, maybe even trade up to like 8 or something, if that avenue presents itself. But having seen him hop into the top 5 once or twice, like I'm like, I don't know, man. Like, I mean, I guess it's sort of like if he hops into the top 5, then Shaden Sharp's out, which I think makes a little more sense. But I also don't know if I quite see Daniels there. Now, granted, maybe he just crushes all of his workouts, and it makes total sense why teams take him. And in a better context than the G League Ignite, he looks a lot better in the like actual NBA. But I guess we'll see what happens. But I do worry that maybe he's on a little bit too much of a rocket ship right now.
You know those YouTube videos that are like top 10 greatest anime betrayals of all time? I feel like I just witnessed one in front of my
That
face.
was it right there.
Yeah. For you to talk down on Dyson. Wow, that's wild, man. When he's on the podcast in a few years, we're gonna have to bring this up. But
I just want to keep him humble,
yeah.
I just gotta.
Yeah, I'll throw one more name out there. I think Chet Holmgren, and not even because of where he's going to get taken, but just because of what I think outside expectations are for him. Because I think people hear the name and hear the hype, and have seen some of the YouTube videos, like when in high school when he famously broke Steph Curry's ankles, and think this guy is Anthony Davis. And I don't know, maybe I'm arguing against no one, right? I'm making like a straw man basically, but I think he's a lot more Al Horford than he is even maybe Evan Mobley, in that he'll be a really good defensive player and he'll be hyper efficient offensively, right? Because he can shoot the 3 and he's good around the rim and he's a smart passer. But I don't see megastar there. And I think part of the equation that's fascinating to me, and I think I think not the Thunder. I think the Magic are going to take Jabari Smith at number 1, right? And this interesting question for the Thunder is Chet seems like such an obvious pick with their guards and what they're building there. But are you really going to pass up on Paolo's upside? Because I just think Chet has such a cap ceiling. He's almost definitely going to be good unless you're really concerned about the weight. And it's fair to be concerned about the weight just because there isn't a long track record of bigs at that size succeeding in the NBA. But I think in my opinion, he's going to be good. But I'm almost sure that he's not going to be a game changer for your franchise. Can you pass up on someone with a higher ceiling at that 2 spot? I don't know. So I would say he's overrated in that context. I would say he's underrated in the sense that people who are like, he's going to be a bust. He's going to be a bust. Like, nah, I think there's just too much skill there.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. As far as guys I think are being undervalued as of right now, one guy we've been talking about a lot lately, I think Johnny Davis, maybe getting a little undervalued. Like I think that prior to when he got hurt this year, he had really, really good production and was almost being like in the conversation for National Player of the Year. And then I have seen too that like his context, like I didn't watch a lot of Wisconsin this year, so most of what I have to rely on is like watching stuff on YouTube and stuff now. And I haven't really watched like a full game yet, but from what I understand, I mean, he was like option 1, 2, and 3 on that offense and had basically no help on either end. In which case, I could totally see a world where, he was getting so much defensive attention thrown at him that it's like, are you just overthinking this a little bit because he's a second year prospect and was playing on a team where he was like the only guy? Almost feels, and I don't want to make this comparison, but like just the context feels kind of similar to like Steph Curry when he was coming out of college, of like, he was so good at Davidson, but what about the level of competition? What about this? What about that? Now taking into consideration, like, he was the only dude scoring points for that team and, was getting like doubles, triples all the time. And so if that was the situation that Johnny Davis was living through, maybe we're sort of overanalyzing like the efficiency and stuff a little bit in that case. And then the other guy I'll just throw out for being undervalued, and this is another guy that I've said that I have my reservations about, but like I saw a mock today where the Knicks were mocked Mark Williams and passed over AJ Griffin, who fell to 11. And I was like, that can't happen. If that happens, like the Knicks need to take AJ Griffin and not look back. Like, I'm sorry, this dude shot like 55% from 3 as a freshman. And if his athleticism comes back in any way, like in a meaningful way after having like the knee injury that, at the end of high school, whatever, that sort of carried over into Duke this year, like forget about it. You're talking about a guy who shot 50% from deep, and like, if he could regain elite athleticism, could be a good defender, could have the hops, like everything. So, but if nothing else, he's going to be a really good shooter, which is like all. If that's all you get out of pick 11, then it's not a bad pick. As long as the person's not like a total, nothing on defense, which I don't think he should be. So that's the other guy I think is being a little undervalued right now. Like, I don't think if AJ Griffin gets to the Knicks, short of like also, I don't know, Shaden Sharp getting to the Knicks too. Like there's a bunch of jumps into the top 10. Like, okay, maybe you have to make a tough decision between AJ and someone else that was projected top 10, but if it's like him and a bunch of the dudes that have been projected to the Knicks at 11, you got to take him and just not look back.
Yeah, I'm with you. I got 3 more guys I want to talk about, Alex. But first, if these prospects want to hit their ceiling, what should they be eating at the end of the day?
Well, they should certainly be eating clean, and they should be eating Sakara. And feeling your best starts with what you eat. Sakara helps you live a healthy, balanced lifestyle and truly enjoy it with delicious plant-rich, transformational nutrition that builds a foundation for living in your best body. Now is the time to seek wellness, joy, and abundance in all areas of your life, starting with what you eat. With Sakara, you get nutrient-dense meals, snacks, and supplements that nourish your body without ever sacrificing taste or quality. I had the pleasure of getting to try Sakara, and I'll tell you what, like my wife's vegetarian. As a result, like we eat vegetarian or vegan a lot, like for dinner, because just so I don't have to make like a meat item just for myself. And having Sakara for a few days, I was like, this is some of the best like vegan food I've ever had in my life. There was a vegan goat cheese spread made with cashews that could have fooled me, and I'm like one of the biggest goat cheese guys in the world. There was a vegan pasta bolognese with spinach and stuff mixed in, quote unquote bolognese because it didn't have ground beef and in fact had like protein crumbles. Just amazing, really really tasty, great food. So like on top of being really healthy, the food is primo, and it's great if you don't want to like worry at all about your meals and you don't want to have to cook and whatever else. They figure it all out for you. They send you really healthy stuff that all tastes amazing, and it all gets delivered right to your door, and at most needs to be like microwaved or heated up in a pan. It's really great stuff. Sakara is a wellness company anchored in food as medicine, on a mission to nourish your body through the power of plants. And the nutritionally designed chef-crafted breakfast, lunches, and dinners are made with powerful plant-rich ingredients, helping boost your energy, support your digestion, curb your sugar cravings, and get your skin glowing. Plus, it's all delivered to your door, ready to eat. And right now, Sakara is offering our listeners 20% off their first order when they go to sakara.com/lockedon20 or enter code lockedon20 at checkout. That's Sakara, SAKARA.com/lockedon20 to get 20% off your first order. Sakara.com/lockedon20. All right, Gavin, we're back and about to get into the rest of your undervalued guys in the draft right now. But I do just want to ask everybody an important favor. We've put together a survey so we can learn more about listeners like you and make your favorite Locked On podcast even better, like Locked On Knicks. This is your opportunity to tell us what you like and don't like about Locked On Podcast. Go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey right now to get started. It won't take very long, And everyone that completes the survey can qualify for a chance to win one of 10 $100 Ticketmaster gift cards. That's not too shabby. To take our audience survey, go to lockedonpodcast.com/survey. Thank you for your help. And Gavin, I now cede the floor to you. Who are your other three undervalued prospects right now?
Yeah, I'll rip off three quick ones. Keegan Murray is the highest ranked of that group. I think he has some Obi Toppin in him in terms of just outstanding college efficiency. And with Obi, it took a little bit, but then it did translate to the NBA. And Keegan doesn't really have any of the defensive concerns that Obi has. Like everything about his advanced statistical profile just screams star in the NBA. And maybe similar to Chet, I don't know if he hits that, but I just think the odds of him busting are so low that you got to take a swing on him. And I lied about him being the highest guy because also Jaden Ivey has to be in that mix. I think I'm surprised he's not in the conversation for the number one pick. I kind of get it just because Orlando obviously has taken Suggs and Cole Anthony the last 2 years, but the kind of juice that he has, to me, it's the most obvious star trait of any of the top four. I mean, you could argue Chet's rim protection, you could argue Jabari's shooting, you could argue Paolo's frame and skill combination, but I just think his speed is a game changer. Malachi Branham, I've talked about a bunch, so I don't need to, but just rare combination of efficiency and volume and comfort level for a freshman, all of which I think will translate well to the NBA. And then one of our mutual favorites, one of the favorites of seemingly everyone we talk to, Tari Eason, just his wingspan, instincts, physicality, aggressiveness, I think is one. Yeah, big hands, big hands. It's like that old Entourage quote, like you know he's a star when he has a big head. He's like and they'll just throw out different guys like Vince Vaughn, big head. Big head. Tari Eason, big hands. Big hands. Yeah. Kid's gonna be at the very least, I think, a solid NBA player. And if that jumper comes around, there's a case that he will be one of the 3 to 5 best guys in this draft. So those are my quick ones, Alex. But we can jump to the next question.
Yeah, so this is a nightmare hypothetical real quick to get into.
Good. The real world isn't bad enough.
Yes. Another one from our buddy Jordan Bubb on Twitter. If you had to keep one of these Knicks vets for next season, Kemba or Noel, and you can't pick neither, and you have to suffer through their worst case scenario, which one would you pick?
Pretty easily Noel, because I think the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario for him is just he's not on the floor. And the worst case, the worst case scenario for him would actually be a new rule is instituted that he's only allowed to play offense. But
no, you know what? I would say the worst case scenario for him is actually what happened earlier this year, where he's playing hurt,
right,
and clearly hurt, but like enough that he can gut it out. So like if we had to deal with that for a whole season, although like the worst case for Kemba is that he goes out there fully healthy at this point, or his version of fully healthy as we saw this year. So I guess there's really no great option. I struggle to say which one is more damaging, to be honest.
I just think Kemba hurts you more because he demands the ball. He's either demanding the ball or he's useless, right? There's no middle ground, as we found out this year. And either of those options hurt you at this point if you're the Knicks.
Yeah, and he's just a complete turnstile on defense. So it's like, do you want him to run your offense and have his one miracle 40-point game per year and the rest be like 8-point stinkers? Or do you want like Noel to go out there on a bum knee and not be able to do anything on offense or defense either? Both these players are terrible at their worst case scenario. They were like literally, I mean, I hate to say it, they were probably the two worst stories of this whole Knicks season. I mean, no, like Burks, I don't fault because he just got put in a bad position, but like when he was in the right position, he looked like a good investment. You know, it looked like the Knicks paying him last year was a good decision. The Knicks paying Noel looks, I mean, really stupid now. It's just like he got a little hurt and then he got real hurt, and he needs to be 100% healthy or else things aren't going to work. And he needs like his 100% peak athleticism to be able to do what he does on defense. And if he doesn't have that, then he's never any good on offense. So like he just doesn't have anything going. Kemba, meanwhile, is just like, I mean, he's lost so much of his burst. He obviously can't coexist with Julius Randle, but even if you threw him out there with the same lineup plus Obi Toppin in there, and he could run pick and roll all day with Obi, you still don't get over the fact that he can't play defense anymore. Yeah, I guess gun to my head, I take the Noel situation, but I don't like either of them.
No, thanks for torturing us, Jordan. But we'll forgive you because you asked about 50 questions, and here's another one of them. He said, "Who should the Knicks be targeting in the second round? Should it be a big like Jop or I'm sorry for my pronunciation here, Enzosa, or wing like Patrick Baldwin Jr., Josh Minott, Julian Champagny." Or a guard like God. This is he's continuing to torture me, Alex. Ziga Samar, or this one I know, Alondis Williams.
Well, maybe we should just remind everybody where they can go to bet on. There's nothing draft related we can bet on right now, but where can people go bet real quick before we answer that question?
Or can people place odds on me pronouncing the next name wrong?
Yeah, they might have odds there. We could probably work out a special line on that.
Yeah. They bet online. They dig those high risk, high reward ones. BetOnline.net is your number one source for all your betting stats and sports info. You can find all the latest sports developments, news, and odds, including this year's basketball championship matchup, the NHL Hockey Conference Finals, Major League Baseball, and of course, all the latest fighting news from MMA and UFC to boxing. And they have some odds that will currently interest Knicks fans. And they are about the next Utah Jazz coach to replace Quinn Snyder. And Alex, unfortunately for us Knicks fans, the man with the number one odds to replace Quinn Snyder at 3-1 is, of course, Johnny Bryant. So if you, like me, would very much like the Knicks to retain Johnny Bryant and potentially even for Johnny Bryant to be the Knicks' next head coach, you'll throw some money on someone else and really hope you're right. Or you could bet on Johnny Bryant, and then at least if it happens, you get some money. Regardless, BetOnline is your continued source for all your sports wagering information, including live betting, esports, and more. So head to the website today or use your mobile device to learn more about the trends in action. BetOnline, where the game starts. All right, Alex, let's see how many of those names you remembered. I'm not going to say the question again. Who do you want to start off talking about?
Well, I actually want to talk about Alondis Williams first. I'm mostly familiar with him because working closely with Prez, I know that Prez is a huge Alondis Williams guy. He's gotten my attention, and others like in our Discord channel and stuff have got my attention by relating him in some ways to like Baron Davis. He's like a thick guard that's like surprisingly super athletic. And
wait, isn't he like 6'8"? Am I crazy?
No, I don't think he's quite that big. I think he's 6'4" or 6'5".
Okay,
like good point guard size. He's a good size for a point guard, but
yeah, he's 6'5". He was in the middle.
Yeah, he's a big boy though. Like he's built like a tank, and has like really surprising hops and athleticism. I like his vision. It seems like he can shoot a bit and create a bit. So I mean, I don't know what's holding teams back on him. Like it seems like his stats are really good too. Like I don't fully get it.
He's older. I think that's part of it.
That's probably part of it. I feel like he's got steel written all over him. I think Prez and some draft Twitter have had their misses over the last couple of years. Sharif Cooper, who we can't fully write off yet either because he only had one rookie season in the G League mostly and backing up quote unquote Trae Young. So like, there's only so much you can glean from that. But I think Alondis is a good bet. He looks like he's going to be at least a backup guard. I was also gonna say Nemhart from Gonzaga was not a name that Jordan brought up, but like if the Knicks want a potential like real point guard, that might be available by the time their 42nd pick rolls around, he might be a guy. He also might be gone by then. They might have to make a little bit of a move to move up, a number of spots to get him, but I think that he could be a good pick for the Knicks if they're looking for like a pure point guard type. So go for that if you want. But like, I like the idea of like a Patrick Baldwin Jr. potentially. I mean, he tested terrible at the combine and had a really bad freshman season. So it's like, I don't know. Like, so the guy put up terrible stats in college and he can't jump at all. Like, I don't get it. But he was really highly regarded coming out of high school. Sometimes I feel like you just, if you reach that point where you're in like the second round and you have a guy fall into your lap, you think, okay, this guy was really good in high school. Like, let's just take him and see if it works out. Sometimes that works, like with someone like Mitchell Robinson, who had some weird circumstances surrounding, his whole journey to the NBA, and yet turned out pretty good. Despite really obviously not getting to play college ball at all, and having pretty limited high school exposure and stuff like that. Sometimes you just take a chance on a guy and it works out. So Baldwin is a guy that I'm definitely interested in. And then I'll just throw like two bigs out there too, real quick, and then throw it to you, Gavin. Like, there's two guys that have really gotten my interest lately. It's Christian Coloco out of Arizona. He put up really good numbers at Arizona, and he's a little older too. He's like almost 22 years old, and he's a junior. So that's going to hold some people back, I guess. But he's like a true 7-footer, good rim protection from what it seems, but also is like during all these workout videos and stuff, and like people are saying that it's like legit. Like he's hitting like, it's not like, oh, they captured him making 3 in a row and then he misses like 27. He's like legitimately, they're putting him through drills and he's making like 24 out of 35 3-point attempts and stuff. Like, and the form looks good and everything else. Like, that's a guy worth trying. I don't know. Maybe that's like your second round Brook Lopez that you can, nab and have a rim protector that can shoot threes and space your offense. That would be pretty cool. So I'd be into him. Also, Ismail Kamagate, who plays for Paris basketball. He's a center as well. And he was a guy that Rafael Barlow talked up a bit when he was on the pod last time, and really piqued my interest. I started looking into him a little bit, and I'm like, all right, this guy seems legit too. Like, he's kind of messed around and like beaten up on like Victor Wembanyama, who we had PD Webb on, who said is like one of the best prospects since like Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. So if that's the case, like if this guy's flashed some of that, but is just, due to EuroLeague play or whatever, hasn't gotten as much of a platform, to show himself off, that's a guy I'd be interested in potentially nabbing, especially if the Knicks are moving on from Mitchell Robinson, rather than use that pick on like a Mark Williams or a Jalen Duren or something like that in the first round. Maybe just stay patient and either use your, pick 42, or maybe buy a pick that's further up, or trade some combination of, pick 42 in cash or something like that to move into the 30s and grab a guy, like that. I think that might be the move. And then just kind of platoon, like, whether it's Kamagate or Coloco with Jericho Sims, and then have like whoever, like Taj Gibson or maybe Nerlens Noel, or whatever, as your breaking case of emergency guy in case those guys get in foul trouble. But especially if the Knicks move on from Randall and lean more into the youth, I think that's a move I'd definitely be into.
Yeah, I'll just throw out one name real quick. A guy I really like, Christian Braun out of Kansas, who really flashed during the NBA Combine. Guy, I think people is one of those dudes who seems like he was in college for about 1 million years, and Kansas had, I think, 6 of those guys on their team, and it just felt weird because I was like, oh, I remember watching those dudes, because I'm a lifelong Oklahoma fan. I'm like, didn't they play against Blake Griffin in like 2008? Am I crazy? but he's a nice player. I mean, can really shoot the ball, slick passer, tough defender with pretty good feet. I just think he's one of those guys you could just throw into the mix on almost any bench rotation in the NBA, and I feel like he would be a plus piece just because he seems, again, thanks to that extended college career, very, very ready. And yeah, I'm a big Alondas Williams guy too. I just think flat out one of the more aesthetically pleasing games in the NBA, because I always love when you get a big dunker who just has a great skill set. I mean, Baron Davis was a fantastic name to throw out. I think he's almost the all-time example of that. But someone who has that like skyrocket athleticism, but also just clearly is just such a savvy and skilled player as well. And Alec Burks, I don't know, did you see that clip going around the other day of that dunk he had when he was on the Jazz? And someone captioned is like, this is not the Knicks Alec Burks or something. And I was like, oh, I had no idea he could get up like that. But I guess he was the example of that back in the day. But yeah, big fan of Alondas Williams. It would be cool if he got a shot on the Knicks. I don't know. I don't know what his NBA future is, given his age. And to your point, I don't know exactly what the questions are about him, but I assume there's some speed stuff that might not translate to the NBA, but who knows? I like his game a whole lot. Alex, but we can finish up on this one real quick. Final question of the day from, of course, Jordan Bubb. If the Knicks trade out of the first round for one of these players, who would it be for? Malcolm Brogdon, Mike Conley, Collin Sexton, Harrison Barnes. I don't know about you. Malcolm Brogdon, because the way he frames the question is not who we would want, but who the most likely scenario is. I think Brogdon's the only guy on that list I could say is likely. Maybe Sexton, but given his restricted free agency, that'd be kind of weird.
Yeah, I don't think they could technically do that without it being considered tampering. We've seen the league sort of crack down on sign and trades the last couple of years. That's been like their pet thing. Is
Wait,
like,
wouldn't that be similar to the Wiggins trade where you pick the guy and then you wait 30 days and then you trade him?
yeah, but it's different because that was agreed upon after Wiggins was already drafted, allegedly. Unless they did a good job covering that up. But
Yeah.
like when Wiggins got drafted, it was like the Cavs didn't know LeBron was coming back. If you can't see me on YouTube and you're listening on pod, I just did big time air quotes. Like, of course, the Cavs probably had a pretty good idea that LeBron was coming back when the draft was happening, but for all intents and purposes, they did not know that. And so they just drafted Wiggins. And then later on, which I do think this is legit. Like, I do think that after LeBron officially said, yes, I'm coming to Cleveland, then they put the wheels fully in motion to trying to find a trade. And then it just came out with like, okay, Kevin Love deal, we'll send you Andrew Wiggins. And with that, it was just because, see, this is what actually makes it even more likely that maybe the Cavs didn't fully know about LeBron's decision at that time, was that they signed Wiggins to his deal rather than just having him be a draft pick at that point. So like they could have like held out in his contract negotiations for a little bit or whatever if they knew that was coming, and then they could have just traded his rights right away and been like, okay, Minnesota, or you guys arrange his rookie scale contract, because technically speaking, number one pick usually just gets offered the max of what they can, but there is technically a scale that they can offer the player from like X dollar amount to X dollar amount. Usually they just go the higher amount. But so that was kind of part of showing that they maybe weren't planning that right away either, because that was what made them have to wait the 30 days. Otherwise you could just trade the guy right away. I think in the case of this, if it was like a sign and trade for Collin Sexton, I'm pretty sure that the league would be like, no, free agency is until next week. So we're nixing this, and Knicks, you guys, probably just to screw the Knicks, because everybody loves to screw the Knicks. They'd be like, you guys lose your first round pick next year or something, rather than just a second rounder, because now this, again, is becoming like a pet issue for them. Where
The Knicks would definitely win the lottery in that scenario.
Yes, win the lottery, and then it gets forfeited, and then I don't know, somehow like Boston would get pick number 2 and get awarded the number 1 pick or something. So yeah, I don't think the Sexton thing can like logistically happen unless there's some backdoor stuff where like the Knicks call up the Cavs and say like, call up the Cavs and call up Sexton's representation and say like, hey guys, like in a whisper, like, we can't talk about this officially, but like we want Sexton to come here. Is that cool? Like Sexton, your agent, Sexton, you good with that? Okay, cool. Cavs, you guys good with that? Okay, cool. All right, like so this will be the dollar amount, and then like who do you guys want in the draft? We'll draft them for you. We promise. Okay, you want that? Like,
yeah,
that would get out somehow. So I just don't think that's gonna happen. So yeah, I think my ideal. I mean, I don't think any of those options are ideal, if I'm being completely honest. Would be Brogdon, just because I think that he has the highest ceiling for potential production, even with the injury concerns. Barnes and Conley just don't move the needle for me at all. Like, especially if you're trading your draft pick and not Julius Randle and end up with Harrison Barnes, like what are you doing with your life? You're just preventing Obi Toppin from playing more, or you're committing to playing Harrison Barnes at the 3, which both are just bad ideas right now. And Conley is just, I mean, he had a resurrection this past year, but I still think he's pretty well over the hill. I would not trade a 11th pick for him at this point in his career. So Brogdon's like the only guy that makes even the smallest bit of sense to me there. So he is both the ideal and the realistic option to me. I guess the most disastrous would be Harrison Barnes to me.
Yeah, I'm in total agreement. I would actually say Conley at this point would be more disastrous than Harrison Barnes. Anyone who watched any of that Jazz Mavericks looked, and it sucks to say because Conley's really one of my favorite NBA 10 years or so, but he looks like he's done. But to your point, I think Brogdon is the only choice. And with that, we will wrap up this edition of the Locked On Knicks podcast. As always, thank you so much for tuning in. Remember to like, subscribe, throw us a review. I keep saying it, but nobody throws us a review. Maybe you're just too happy to even write how happy you are. But please, we love constructive criticism or just nice words, whatever you want to say. But just throw us 5. Nice words are nice. But just throw us 5 stars. But anyways, until next time, he's Alex. I'm Gavin. Peace out.